Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your astrology energy forecast for the week of September 17th to the 23rd of 2023. We have the fall equinox and the sun coming into Libra, so let's jump right into it. All right, so we start off the week here on Sunday, September 17th. The major transit peaking this day is Venus in square to Jupiter retrograde. All right, so we've got Venus in Leo here. She's now direct, moving forward now. She's at 15 degrees, squaring Jupiter, 15 degrees in Taurus, with Jupiter retrograde. So again, Venus in Leo, Jupiter in Taurus, we're kind of dealing with... there's kind of a lot of Venus energy here, right? Because Venus is the ruler of Taurus, and of course with Jupiter there, Jupiter kind of expands whatever sign it's in. It's expanding this type of energy, so very much like, relationships. Of course in Taurus it's more of like your work, your money, your self-worth, what's valuable, those kinds of things. And with Venus here in Leo, it's kind of focusing on this unconditional aspect of love with those things, with our own self as well. But it's definitely still dealing with, because we have the actual planet Venus herself being involved in this, not just the sign of Taurus. We do have this aspect of those other Venusian themes, such as relationships, balance, the aesthetic, beauty, those types of things. And of course with Jupiter here, Jupiter wants to kind of, like I said, expand wherever it is. But with Jupiter retrograde, we're kind of going over old ground in these spaces. So this could be expanding on things that maybe we didn't really notice before in these sense, and maybe having more of a look at it from more of a heart space, as Venus is now in Leo here. And of course we've had Venus retrograde, so I feel like this is kind of looking at what we've already had, or what we've already got, what we've already had in terms of maybe relationships, careers, our money, value, those types of things, and seeing where our abundance really truly does lie within those things that we already have going on here. Of course, this can mean expansion within these areas, or I almost wanted to say within new ways, but it'd be within new ways within the areas that we've already known, right? Because Jupiter is retrograde here, so this isn't really anything new that's going on. It's expanding in areas in which we already know in terms of these kind of Venusian themes. And of course in Leo, this could be bringing things to center stage, unconditional love, the unconditional love for self as well within these areas. And just maybe letting our own light shine a bit more within maybe our relationships, our job, career, those types of things, and expanding in areas where we know we can expand, where we know we are loved, where we know kind of that stuff, that positivity kind of exists there. All right, let's kind of move on to I was going to say Tuesday there, to Monday. Sorry, so on Monday we're going to have the sun in quincunx to the North Node in Aries. So sun nearing the end of Virgo here. By the end of the week, we will be having the equinox, fall equinox, with the sun ingress into Libra. We'll talk about that a bit later. So here we're going to have, obviously, that quincunx there to the North Node in Aries. So we've already had the sun in quincunx to Chiron. And I don't know about you guys, but I certainly really felt that, not only from other people, but kind of the reaction from myself. Especially, I think there was almost like an anger involved into that wound of self that kind of existed there. And of course, Aries being ruled by Mars, there could be an aspect of that. And of course, there could be, a quincunx being a frustrating aspect, that aspect of frustration, obviously surrounding our day-to-day lives and schedules with the sun in Virgo. So again, we're kind of having this look. The North Node wants to move forward in this new direction of ourself, our independence, taking action, that kind of stuff. But there's a frustration here with this sun in Virgo. It's like, well, what about the details? What about our day-to-day lives, our schedules, our jobs, are we going to the gym? Are we healthy? Are we, all these things? And so there's a frustration here, and maybe wanting to push forward into our new self, almost in a sense, into our self-identity, into this new direction, especially after this I almost want to say like reopening of these wounds of this Chiron in Aries. But a lot of it is like healing. So whenever we kind of hit Chiron, as frustrating it may be with an aspect like a quincunx, it ultimately is there for integration and healing in that way. Even just with the quincunx in general, not necessarily involving Chiron, but with Chiron here, especially in retrograde, we're dealing with a lot of stuff that we've been through before that has hurt us. And of course, now we're wanting to move forward, but there's kind of this frustration here. It's like, okay, we kind of got to stop. And there's these details, there's these frustrating aspects here, but we need to kind of integrate that as well and kind of maybe order to move forward in this new direction. Right? I've also kind of mentioned before previously as well with Mars entering into Libra, Mars ruling the North Node and being in Libra, it's wanting more balance and maybe recognizing the focus on self more as well within relationships and not just always on the other person like maybe Libra wants to do. So this could be reflecting now through frustrations in our day-to-day lives with the Sun here in quincunx to that North Node, of course, being ruled by Mars, which is in Libra. So there's all these kind of flavorings that could be associated with that. So we may kind of need to seek a balance or maybe focus a bit more on ourselves in our day-to-day lives to try to strike that balance in a way, but of course not forgetting about the other people that are involved, but recognizing that we matter as well. We need to heal those wounds and stuff inside of ourselves in order to move forward. So like I said, there's just an integration here that may need to happen. It may feel frustrating in terms of the direction maybe that we want to move forward in. Then our day-to-day schedule, lives, health, maybe issues, those kinds of things, that the little things and the details regarding all that needs to be looked at before maybe we can really begin to step forward in that. So yes, it can be frustrating, but like I said, we need to look at that aspect of integration and maybe understanding where that frustration comes from in order to solve those things and to move forward. All right, let's take a look at Tuesday here. So on Tuesday, we're going to have the Sun opposition Neptune and then Mars in quincunx to Jupiter retrograde. So with this Sun opposition Neptune, this is kind of like, I was kind of thinking about this before doing this video, and it's kind of like the Sun in Virgo, our day-to-day lives, our schedules, and with Neptune in Pisces, it's like this balance between does our day-to-day reality match what we kind of dream it to be or want it to be, right? Or maybe are we balancing spirituality with like physical health stuff as well? Like this could almost be like energy healing versus like physical healing too. Like, yeah, we could be, maybe making sure we eat our vegetables and do all that stuff, but are we balancing out with our spiritual side as well? Like, are we doing that? Is there this balance here? Because the Sun in Virgo is kind of illuminating this Neptunian aspect. This can also be the balance between like physical health and mental health, right? They do reflect each other, right? You can't necessarily have one in balance without the other being in balance, right? And with Virgo here, again, like I said, this deals with our day-to-day schedules, not just health, but our day-to-day schedules. Virgo can also be like stress because it's very nitpicky, trying to be perfect, trying to look at all these things and fix everything. But we need to kind of maybe focus on what we really do need to fix and find this right balance between physical health and mental health, or, our day-to-day being grounded in our reality and our schedule in our lives, but also remembering the spiritual aspect of ourselves. Maybe realizing that maybe there is a way to balance this aspect of escapism, Pisces, with our reality and our day-to-day Virgo as well. So just kind of keep that in mind today. We also have this Mars in quincunx to Jupiter. So again, there's another frustrating quincunx. There seems to be lots of quincunxes coming up here. So this could bring up even more frustration, especially Jupiter likes to expand all this stuff. So again, Jupiter is retrograde. We're dealing, all these retrograde planets deal with everything that starts with RE, if your language is English. Reworking, reconsidering, redoing, all the re's, looking over a lot of these things. So, and like I said previously, Jupiter's expanding, Taurus is about our abundance, about, our self-worth, the value, material things. Jupiter wants to expand in these areas, but when it's retrograde, it's where we've already been, right? So with Mars here, it's wanting to strike this balance, but this Mars could, and like I think what I was getting at with this Jupiter affecting Mars here, so there's kind of like a benefic and malefic trying to kind of fighting each other if you want to go into traditional astrology. But Jupiter expands what it touches. So with this aspect to Mars, there could be this, we may see maybe even flare-ups in terms of our relationships if we're not finding that balance, if we're not feeling our own worth within that, right? Jupiter wants to expand on these, especially in Taurus, wants to feel good, expand on this abundance. And are we really feeling that way within our relationships, right? Are we really taking action appropriately, maybe within our relationships, or finding that proper balance for ourselves? Or are we in the right relationships for ourselves? Remember, Mars is ruling the North Node here, which is in Aries, and which is a focus on self. Like, this isn't always about the other person, but it could also be, are we with the right person, right? Is that person that we're taking action on towards in our relationships the right person? So there's a frustration here in wanting to, this abundant expansion, possibly return in terms of relationships, as Mars is in Libra. But there could be frustrations involving that as well. And I say that in terms of Mars, not necessarily because this is a quincunx. However, that quincunx, a quincunx is always really can be frustrating. You're dealing with two signs that have really not much to do with each other. Except in this case, what's interesting is that Libra and Taurus are both ruled by Venus. So, but we're dealing with these two opposite sides of Venus that are trying to find harmony in some way, right? This is Mars and Libra. The passion there is finding that harmony. Jupiter wants to expand in this abundant, feel-good space, but are we feeling that way within our relationships, or within our job, within our career? You know, are our passions matching what's making us feeling balanced in our lives, where we want to expand, what's going to feel good? And I kind of feeling like a lot this may have to really do with our partnerships and relationships. Are we really with the right person at the moment? There could be a frustration regarding this. Or there could be an expansion that needs to happen, may possibly within existing relationships, or it could possibly be an ending with this reworking in terms of, Jupiter wanting to expand in a more positive way, but it's taking a look, maybe you can't expand anymore on what you've already got too. So it's reevaluating those kinds of things. All right, let's move forward here now onto Wednesday. So Wednesday here, September 20th, we're going to have the Sun in trine to Pluto. So Sun, again, nearing the end of Virgo, trining Pluto in Capricorn. So the trine is a positive aspect, but anything regarding Pluto would involve some kind of transformation, bringing to the surface of something, right? Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, we're dealing with goals, career, aspects of control as well. That's kind of the darker side that's going on here. And with Pluto here, it can be bringing that stuff up. So this could be a positive shift and transformation, especially since both of these signs are grounded earth signs, Virgo and Capricorn, really dealing with aspects of career in our day-to-day lives, how we show ourselves to the world, those kinds of things. There could definitely be a realization of maybe a positive transformation that needs to occur in these areas. But again, this is a trine, this is positive, but anything involving Pluto and Scorpio, obviously there's a lot of people that are kind of afraid of that. If you're not really able to kind of handle your own shadow, maybe this won't feel like a trine to you. But again, this is a positive thing. This is a positive transformation, positive moving forward. Scorpio isn't something to be scared of. Your own shadow isn't something to be scared of. We all have skeletons in our closet that we all need to face and have a look at. And through bringing those things to the surface and releasing them and integrating the lessons and everything, we can really heal and move forward from that. And that's what Pluto and Scorpio can really teach us, is through that aspect of that diving deep and bringing things up and transforming them, right? So there's that aspect of transformation that can occur there on Wednesday. And again, with Pluto retrograde, old stuff is coming up. Things are being brought to the surface. we're really seeing it, and we're really wanting to push for more of this positive transformation in these areas. All right, so let's move now to Thursday. So on Thursday here, we're going to have Chiron trine to Juno. So again, Juno can deal with our partnerships. This can be business partnerships, relationship partnerships, any kind of committed partnership. It doesn't have to be romantic. It just deals with some kind of committed partnership in some way. And of course, we're in this trine to Chiron. So we're dealing with these old wounds to self. And with Juno and Leo, we're kind of looking at coming from this heart space, right? This space of unconditional love. Within these spaces of these connections in our relationships, maybe where we felt wounded before, but that maybe we need to bring love to those things. And maybe we didn't really need to feel wounded, that we really actually do have something to bring to the table within these partnerships and relationships. Remember, this is a trine, this is a positive aspect. So we're kind of maybe seeing that, where we may have felt hurt before, and maybe not felt able to express ourselves through the wounding of the past, that maybe having a look at that and realizing that there was value there within these places, within these connections that we had in our partnerships, and bringing them to light, recognizing. This could also be recognizing possibly the wounds that do exist within these partnership type connections, going over them, bringing love to them, and ultimately fixing them and healing them in some way as well. Okay, so let's move on now to Friday. So Friday is interesting. We're going to have the first quarter moon after this new moon in Virgo the previous week. However, what I find interesting about this is that we've already had a quarter moon with the sun in Virgo and the moon in Sagittarius back on August 24th. So, and in terms of where this Sagittarius versus, Virgo, this is a mutable square. So this is dealing with like what we need to end, what we need to maybe change, right? Because as we move forward to the equinox here, so as the sun and moon change signs, or sun and moon move into new signs, change signs, they're going to be entering, Libra and Capricorn. So these are cardinal signs moving forward in a new direction. Right? So with this basically kind of like second mutable square almost in this quarter moon, it's like this second kind of focus on really what we need to change. Because remember, Mercury is now direct. Mercury also rules the sign of Virgo that the sun is in here. And so I almost feel with all of this retrograde type energy, we've been looking over these things over and over again. And as we've already had this square at the beginning of Virgo and Sagittarius, it's like now we're having it again, almost like to look over it again, or like the initial time was like, where do we need to expand maybe in our day-to-day lives, right? Where do we need to see this positive expansion? What do we need to go forward in this? And then all of a sudden we have all these planets retrograde and things shifting. Now Venus is direct, now Mercury is direct, and now we're having this square again. I'm actually not too sure if Venus or if Mercury was retrograde for the first square. I know it was around August 24th. But again, I kind of feel like that just ties into the theme of all these retrogrades that are happening right now, and that we're kind of seeing this first quarter square again. It's like, okay, where do we need to expand, right? And of course, Virgo and Sagittarius, they're both mutable signs, but they kind of deal with almost like completely opposite ends or different aspects, right? Virgo is all about the details, very detail-oriented, looking at the little things. Sagittarius wants to see the big picture, right? So in terms of this quarter moon, it's like maybe where do we need to expand, but what little things do we need to also look at within our day-to-day lives to move forward into that direction? And with all these retrogrades going on, I feel like we've kind of had a lot of stuff come up, especially with Mercury retrograde in Virgo. We've seen a lot of these Virgoan details and all these things kind of come up. And it's like now we get a second chance to look at, okay, now through this square, what do we need to take action on? Because square causes friction, forces us to take action on in order to expand into these new horizons, new abundant positive directions. Again, almost for like a second time. It's like we've kind of reevaluated it. And now, okay, where are we going to go? And of course, this is right before, right? Because on the very next day, if we move into Saturday now. In fact, this is kind of like middle of the night, around basically just after midnight Mountain Standard Time, my time. We then have the sun moving into Libra, and the moon has already moved into Capricorn. So the moon kind of moves first, and then the sun moves into Libra, and then we have this equinox, right? So it's almost like this, what do we need to shift and change? And then bam, now we get to change the direction and take action on it, right? So we get to have kind of this shift happening into the equinox. We're now in fall, officially in fall season, with the sun in Libra here. Also on this day, we're going to have Venus in trine to Chiron. So Venus, the ruler of Libra, now in trine to Chiron in Aries, while Venus is in Leo. So Venus is bringing, again, like I said, this unconditional love aspect, the center stage aspect to this stuff, and bringing it to these wounds to ourself, right? I kind of touched on this with this Juno energy. Venus could be bringing another, maybe more, I almost wanted to say like romantic or more closer to ourselves kind of a flavor in terms of our relationships, career, those things that are maybe a bit more close to us in terms of like partnership types of connections, as Juno can be, business partnerships, any kind of contractual partnership, whereas Venus can be more of our close, intimate, or romantic relationships, as well as career. I almost kind of relate, they were kind of like on the same relation into terms of into what I was thinking romantic relationships and career, but I'm only saying that because our career is such a big kind of part of our lives in a lot of ways that it's very close to us in that sense. But yeah, so with this trine to Chiron, again, we're kind of illuminating these aspects of unconditional love, maybe on these wounds of self that we've had. But remember, this is a positive transit, so we're possibly seeing these within a new light, right? And we're wanting to move forward in a new direction. Remember, Libra is all about, balance, harmony, the aesthetic. I always think of Libra brings an aspect of beauty. So when we think of the fall, it's like, oh no, winter starting, all this stuff. But it's actually one of the most beautiful seasons, because when you see all the leaves changing, all the different colors in the trees, it brings this aspect of beauty and aesthetic to this season before the winter starts, right? So that's kind of, that nice aspect of Libra. Libra also likes to bring balance to things. So there's more of like a partnership. I almost feel like this week is kind of more focused on like this partnership, kind of bringing balance. But also there's this aspect of, Mars and Aries, this aspect of ourselves. I think this is really, we need to be really focused on ourselves as well, and coming into balance, like in these spaces in our lives. It's not always about the other person or the other thing that's going on. We really need to take a look at ourselves and maybe where we felt wounded, and maybe putting our energy too much into the other person or the other thing and not really focusing on ourselves at the same time. All right, so I'm going to leave it there for this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope everybody has a great week. If you liked it, you know what to do. If you don't like it, you also know what to do. Feel free to leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. All my other links and stuff are in the description below. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.